Emotional algebra, where the heart meets the math. What is integral is derivative as you figure out your path. Power plus emotions equals more than you can see. Listening to the wisdom of our host, Dr. E. Emotional algebra with Dr. E.
Hey everybody, it is Dr. E and my sidekick,
Grace.
and we are here to do a special episode follow-up on adolescence. Remember I talked about during the show to look at maybe having a talk with your kids to try to include them in that. But this is Grace and I getting the band back together. Years ago, she was my sidekick and anchor buddy doing the Genius of Play segments for the Toy Association. We had a lot of fun doing those, and she did an awesome job. And now she's in college and working hard there. And she had actually talked to us about the Adolescence show after she watched it. She binged it as I did. So I thought she'd be a great interview here to dive in and get some of her feedback on how kids in her generation are seeing the show and seeing how true to life this was. So what were your thoughts, Grace, on just a quick overview on the show?
I thought it was a genius idea. It opens a lot of emotions and feelings to maybe like true to life actions, and thinking about like through like how maybe social media affects people with how they see their masculinity, where it comes into play, like where masculinity ends and a false sense of pride starts. I think like it shows, the livelihoods of teenagers and how social media is now impacting their lives, as, it wasn't a thing that as you were growing up, it was something that it was, getting like introduced, and, kids nowadays are growing up with social media, and it is part of their daily lives when they're like very young.
So I talked about how 2017, 13 Reasons Why came out. I remember you had watched that too, right?
I watched a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it. It wasn't my favorite series, I would say, but I did watch a few of that. I know now they've cut a few things out of some of the episodes that could be a bit like triggering, and it would make people, have some sort of feelings. So I do know that they went back and they cut a few scenes out that were, but when it first came out, there was, it had everything in it, and kind of, there's a question of like, should we be showing this to people on TV? Should this be on TV? Should kids have access to this as well? Because I think at the time it was only TV 14, I think, as well. So there's a lot more to it than just,
Yeah, and we had talked about some of that back then, right?
Yeah.
Again, our goal always is to try to hopefully have discussions with Grace about things that we know that she may be aware of, or she comes to us with questions about things too. And that's where Adolescence, actually, she started to have texts with my wife about that. And then we did a little more research into that. So, so one of the things that was brought up was Andrew felt that it was more UK centric. But what I hear you saying is you really feel like this is just endemic between the issues of bullying and the social media is really kind of worldwide. Yeah.
No, absolutely. The show is set in the UK, but this is a worldwide issue. This is like a pandemic between, which most people, when they watch it, they go, well, this is like way blown out of proportion. Like this, this would never happen. But these kind of cases happen all the time. Maybe not as like such like horrific acts, but these are things that do happen quite a bit. And it isn't just the UK. It's everywhere where social media has like, heightened popularity.
So I know when you were younger, you went through some pretty similar situations on some of the social media platforms that really affected you in terms of people who were brought in and to bully you and things that were said about you and a lot of situations you felt you couldn't escape, not only on social media, but also in your school situation.
Yeah, and what I would tell parents about that is just, notice the signs. Like, it's not your fault you didn't fail as a parent. It's not something you can like do anything about in some ways. Sometimes some kids won't tell you because they don't want to make it worse. But just noticing the signs, putting forth energy into, maybe cutting them off from social media as much, and you know don't let them run away from the situation. Let them as well, like, kind of put through like go through what sometimes they need to do to learn about it as well, because
Mhm.
if you're continuing to run away from things, it'll just keep happening until you finally learn from it. And that isn't me saying like that anybody deserves to go through exactly what I went through, but I think as well as that, it evolved me as a person. It changed me as a person, what happened to me and what happens to a lot of other kids. And you know but I do think, as well as that, with social media, a lot of bullies think it's okay to hide behind screen names and hide behind fake names and hide behind profiles because, they're not actually, the confrontation of being in person isn't actually there. So they feel like they can get away with things more, and they can't. It's the same, it harms people the same way that in person confrontations do. So just realizing the signs and realizing, you know what's happening, what can I do about this, how can I help my kid, going to resources, going to talks, looking it up, like just seeing the best, action, that course of action that you can do, and just talking to your kids, talk this out, because with bullying and stuff like that, this is just coming from deep rooted insecurities. It's coming from people that have these insecurities, and they put it on your child, and that's something that they also have to learn from. It doesn't mean that they're a bad guy. It just means that they also are somebody that has insecurities.
Well, I know even at that time we had gotten you some counseling, and it took a while to go to grow through that. It was first understanding what was going on, and then even though you grew up in our home where we talked a lot about power and emotion and all the things I talk about on the podcast, you didn't want to talk to me about this stuff. I know
Yeah.
when I was a kid and I felt bullied, I felt humiliated to talk to my parents about what was going on because I felt like they think less of me. And I
Yeah.
wasn't sure maybe you felt the same way?
Well, I think that also ties back into, adolescence and, masculinity. And like in some women, we also feel like our pride is being, you know, defeated a little bit when we have to admit that, we're letting people pick on us. And at the same time, you're not letting people pick on you. It's people choosing to do these actions. And it takes a while. It takes a while for people to open up about this kind of stuff as well. I know from my personal experience, it took me a while to open up about things because I was scared and I didn't know what to make of it at the time. And all I say is give your kids some patience, and eventually they will talk out about things. They will open up about things. So it's just in due matter of time. Sometimes they feel like they just need to figure it out themselves.
Do you think in some ways you are, if you, as you went through this, it did help prepare you for life? I know there's some parents who are like, I'm just going to keep my kid off social media. Do you think, though, that going through this and having a support system and the ability to communicate did help prepare you for life later on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the worst thing you can do is ostracize your kid more, by keeping them off of social media. Like if all their friends are on social media, then, it can prove to be less useful by you trying to protect them, but you're protecting them so hard that, you're ostracizing them in their own way. So
Mhm.
I think it's just a matter of what parenting style you really want to go for. And honestly, I feel like if I didn't go through this, if I didn't have the social media, if I didn't, put the effort, then I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Mhm. Okay. What are some other factors that you feel helped you through that and come to the place where you are right now?
I feel like I was able to take a step back and look in the shoes of the people that were picking on me, and look to like the future and say like, well, this is what I'm going to do next time. This is what I'm going to try to do to calm myself down, to not let myself get into a place where, I'm just taking it from somebody else. Like, I feel like
Mhm.
I just need to put forth good energy for like what's to come, what's going to be in my future. And like there's a lot of other factors that just like pushed me forward and pushed
Mhm.
me forward to being, a better person, and not letting people, push me around either.
Mhm.
So it just at the time I had a very big lack of confidence. So it was the fact that after a while I started getting my confidence up. And once your confidence, people don't pick on you as much.
Mhm. Yeah.
They people target people that don't have that confidence. People target people that have insecurities that can be seen, that are
Mhm.
shown.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so it sounds like that you learn self-regulation, how to regulate your emotions. You learn to talk things through. You learn perspective taking. You were able to remove those people who were toxic and undermining your power and find healthier friends. And over time, it seemed to me, my observation was you'd often build friends and those relationships might come to an end, but each time your friendship group got healthier and healthier as you got healthier.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think sometimes kids feel afraid to lose a friend group because they like don't know what they'll do if they lose friends. But I think what I'm trying to say here is Grace kept finding new friends, and the friends, like I said, were healthier and healthier and supported her. And she had to go through those situations. So I think as parents, even though you may feel afraid of what your kids may go through or what may happen if they see this or should they be on social media, well, yes, manage the amount of time they're on social media, be able and willing to take a look at what they're doing on social media. That was my wife's job, Grace's mom's job, because she would kind of supervise the social media and then have those discussions. We would talk at dinner. I think one of the most important things we tried to do was have dinner every night. And then as Grace got into high school and she had her situation, we didn't have it as much, but we always at least tried to have a couple dinners together every night. And as her schedule got more busy, and it did affect some of those situations. So I know that you um, are aware of different trends that teenage groups develop. Do you think that's part of just teenagers? Like this one was you using the emojis to communicate different things, that they have their own language. And I think when you were younger, it was those bracelets that
The shrinky, like the
yeah, the snap bracelets
yeah.
that people would snap. But do you think that that's just kind of a part of growing up in teenage years and trying to break away and have your own separate culture are some of those behaviors?
I mean, I definitely would say that with social media, there's a new trend um, every like month, every week. I mean, it just really depends on like what's going viral, what's something funny. And some people, like most of the time, it's humor. They like to be funny online. They like to, like on TikTok, there's a lot of trends where, it's like pranking people, or but we've seen that kind of trend over the years, where it was like with Vine, then it was with Musically, then it was TikTok, and then it was through the things of just pranking people, being funny. But we see a lot of trends in like fashion with micro
Mhm.
trends. It doesn't feel like this generation has a long term, like, I guess, memory for things. Like, it doesn't, they get, or we get bored of things pretty fast. So that's why you're seeing a lot of like different clothes trends, and usually these trends only last a few months. And being a fashion major, and looking into the trends, looking into how long they last, and seeing what lasts and what doesn't, it really only like depends on maybe somebody posting a video. That's how things get around. Somebody
Mhm.
posts a video, then another posts a video, and then it's like a huge loop of just everybody posting videos about a specific item or about a specific thing or about a specific like joke or
Mhm.
and it just gets reposted.
Mhm.
And that is kind of the teenage language. That's how we communicate. That's how we show our individuality. It's how we show our personalities. And I mean, yeah, it definitely is something that I think like provides in the teenage experience now with social media.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Where do you see the concept of masculinity going these days? I know even you've experienced some situations with men who had to show their ultra coolness or power over people, and at times really make some pretty poor choices. I mean, why do you feel like there's almost a trend and almost an epidemic of some of these behaviors going on, or do you feel like it's isolated? What do you feel like the causes, and how do we help to change this?
Well, I mean, for most people, it's insecurity. It's issues feeling smaller than.
Hmm.
A lot of, I feel like the men that have a feeling of wanting to go through with feeling bigger and wanting to feel bigger is because they feel small on the inside. And that's something that I've just noticed in a common trend is that it's not really about who they hurt. It's not really about how they make other people feel, like whether it's women or other men. It's just about feeling bigger than themselves. And I have noticed that there is a lot of content swirling around where it is trying to teach them like bad views of how to view women and bad views of how to view other men. And you know and that's something that I think if you are ingesting this content so much,
Hmm.
it starts changing your view. It starts
Hmm.
changing how you view women, how you view yourself, how you view, if you're not muscly, then you're
Hmm.
not attracted to women. And if you don't treat a woman like this, then you can't call yourself a man. And we throw these words around and it causes insecurities, it causes issues. And that's something just that I've noticed about, like, and I would call it an epidemic. It's a pandemic of just like egotisticalness a little bit and high
Kind of
pride.
narcissism.
Yeah,
Hmm.
just trying to appear bigger than how they feel on the inside.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what would be your recommendations if you were a parent and saw your son starting to become more, I don't like to, but that more looking like a toxic masculinity kind of approach where it's just starting to behave really narcissistically, try to intimidate people, use threats, the way he dresses. Do you see that more as a trend they might go to, or when do you start to see in your own experience maybe where it becomes the way they just choose to approach life?
I think in all honesty, it depends on the family because some families do orient their life around, the man is the head of the table and the man is the head of the family. And I think like for families that don't want to raise their sons this way, don't want their sons to be raised this way. I would say just keeping an eye on the content that they're ingesting, the content that they're liking, the things they're commenting on. That has a very large outlook on, what type of person they are, because some people do comment things that they mean and
Mhm.
they might say it as a joke, but in all jokes there's some truth to it. And I just think like when it comes down to it, just making sure you're seeing the type of content that your young son is ingesting, because kids are impressionable, they are impressionable people. And they will take a lot of things how they
Mhm.
see it online. And that's kind of the thing is that it's either by like nature, it's by nurture.
Do you think that family dinners are important in making sure that you're spending family time together on a regular basis is and was important to you?
I think at the time I didn't get it as much because I wanted to be in my room. I wanted to be playing games with friends. I wanted to, and as a teenager, like you kind of grow more like disobedient a bit, and you want to be individual and do your own thing and kind of stuff like that. And so at the time I didn't actually like the family dinners, but now that I'm older, I can say that I appreciate them. And I think I did it at some point to appreciate the time that I had with my family when I did like attend
Hmm.
and did put forth like my time with my family. But most teenagers won't really see it that way at the time, because you can't really force them
Hmm.
to do something they don't really want to do.
Hmm.
It's just you kind of have to wait for them to come to you.
And we had some difficult talks, too. They were felt uncomfortable for us. They felt uncomfortable for you. Do you feel thankful in retrospect that we had some of those more difficult talks, whether it was about potential for drug use or sex or your relationships, understanding what love is, what love isn't? Do you feel like those were helpful in retrospect?
Yeah, I mean, I think in most teenagers and stuff like that, like with all of us, those conversations at the time can be very, very uncomfortable. But, if you don't talk to your kids about safe usage of everything, like anything, then you miss the opportunity of teaching things that maybe they say that they know, but
Hmm.
it doesn't hit as hard until, you have conversations about it, you have thought processes on it, and it's not like villainized and kept away from you, because as someone that if it feels like it's kept away from you, or if it feels like it's like off limits, the more you
Hmm.
want to do it. As a
Hmm.
teenager, you
Hmm.
want to be rebellious, you want to do things that you're not allowed to do. And
Hmm.
so I think, like, if it's an off limits topic, then the more that kids are going to want to explore and possibly get into dangerous situations.
Hmm. Mhm. Okay, good. So, it sounds like when we're talking about and going back to adolescence, there are a couple of issues here. Is there was a fourth episode, I believe, that really focused on the parents and their feelings of guilt that they felt and talking about it, talking to each other, and in some ways, to me, trying to rationalize, oh no, we didn't do it. And on the other standpoint, um, I think deep inside, they still questioned themselves. What were your thoughts on that?
It definitely was a hard episode for me to watch. It kind of was like, as it was showing the viewpoint of the parents, as it was showing how they were feeling through all of this. I mean, you can't blame them for blaming themselves, because
Mhm,
this is their child. This is somebody that they raised. And, it's hard on parents, especially when something like this happens. And, it's not something that in that they can really like understand fully. And I mean, I don't think that they're at fault for his choices. Those were his choices in the end. Do I think that maybe they could have been managing his content more, and maybe seeing some signs? Because I'm sure, like, he would act like everything was fine, but really what was going online, like, there were people around that were seeing what was happening and didn't speak up, didn't say anything, and then
mhm,
everything happened. So it's not their job to speak up, but
mhm.
at the same time, there's a lot that could be prevented if people speak up and decide to show some awareness to maybe some of the issues.
Do you think it would have been important for his sister to have been more involved in his life and be connected there?
um
Because I know there was some of that, it seemed like there was some distance there.
Well, I will say, with like, I can't say much about having a sibling because I don't. Um, but
Mhm,
I think with most siblings, especially with the age range, it seemed like they had quite a bit of a, like, far apart ages.
mhm,
So it is hard to like get involved with like what your brother's doing, what your younger brother's doing and stuff like that, as well as that she's her individual person. Like,
mhm,
she's not going to be focusing too much on my brother. She has her own life. But at the same time, like, if she was seeing this stuff happening online, what she could have done was brought it to the parents' attention, being like,
mhm,
"Hey, I'm worried about this." But because the comments that he was commenting and the stuff that was going on is so normalized now,
mhm,
it she probably looked at it and didn't bat an eye, like there wasn't a problem with it at all, because it's just kids being kids. And
mhm.
that's the excuse that a lot of people use, is just
Yeah.
it's just kids. They're just joking around, they're just playing. And like people don't realize that some of this kind of stuff really affects people.
I remember in the second episode when the father who was the inspector for the police was talking to his son, and he was glossing over the emojis, and that son was like, "Dad, you don't get it. You don't get it." And then he had to go through and explain what all the emojis meant. How would you recommend for a parent to try to get involved in understanding, like I said, what that teenage language is? Do you think teens should be able to have that language, or in a situation like this, that that it would have been important to really have an idea about what some of that subculture is?
Well, I think in all honesty, there's always going to be that separateness of, like teenagers, and because teenagers will find ways to be sneaky. We all do. We always do. And I mean, I'm sure you had those experiences too when you were younger.
Me? No, never.
Okay. But I mean, teenagers will always find ways to communicate in secret ways. And it's not something like we're such a fast growing
Mhm,
generation where, like, we have all these things that we use. And, most parents, they can't really figure it out. And I mean, that's okay. That's something that, but during the episode when the son was bringing it to the dad's attention, what the dad should have done was just listened and not taken his son for like in some ways demeaning him for what he knew,
mhm,
and he was
mhm,
trying to help his dad. And I think that shows a lot about their rocky relationship too, what can cause, like um what's going on with that. But I mean, I think another interesting topic was about the investigator's son, and the difference between him and the main boy who was in the all the trouble. The
mhm,
investigator's son was also getting bullied. He
mhm,
was also under this, under all these bullying stuff, and
mhm,
that was happening to him. And yet he made a different choice. He didn't do anything like the main guy did. And I think that's an important conversation to have, is because a lot of people want to name the main guy as the victim,
mhm,
but he chose to do what he did. And I think it's a perfect balance of, you choose what you do. And like,
mhm.
the investigator's son was going through the same thing, and yet he did not do what the other guy did.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there about, kind of the choices that we make. Because when you went back and also reviewed the text of the girl who was really trying to humiliate the boy, granted, she had felt humiliated by the pictures that were taken and sent around. So her power was taken. Then he potentially, I think, saw her as vulnerable. Like
Yeah.
then she might go out with him. And then when she said, no way, kind of thing, I think that was humiliating to him.
Yeah.
Do Even though we're not looking for who's at fault, do you think that in those situations that everybody has to take responsibility for the role they play and how they communicate with others?
Absolutely. I think, but at the same time, what happened, that this crime that happened, it wasn't her fault. She did not
No.
deserve what happened to her. No matter what she was saying or doing. I do think, like, she was still a very strong person to the end. Like, even though those photos did go around about her, and that happened, she still stayed strong and wasn't vulnerable. Didn't go out with the first guy that asked her and saw her as vulnerable. I think that's a very important note to see, that even though all of this was happening to her, she didn't change her how she was feeling. She didn't change her.
Don't you think her bullying that kid, though, was about her hiding her vulnerability,
It
embarrassment,
could.
humiliation?
Yeah, it could. I mean, I think also the story doesn't show a lot what was happening
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
I think what the thing is that with Instagram and stuff like that, you can see what people comment on. You can see what they're liking. You can see who they're following as well. And he had a lot of models that he was following, and he was commenting a lot of really
Mhm.
gross things on those models' pages. And in any circumstance, most teenagers will call that an incel.
Mhm.
That's what they label as an incel, somebody that is remotely online and is commenting really gross things through a screen. And, I think she might have found those comments, she might have saw those and was calling him out. Maybe it wasn't the best way she did it, but that was how she felt, you know? And she probably did that because of her vulnerability and her feeling of like, I can't believe this guy asked me out and, you know, all this and all that.
Do you
So,
think a lot of times teens are looking for somebody else to step on when they feel stepped upon? And it's all about power and how
yeah.
can I get some back?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
definitely believe in that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, I mean, even adults still do this. I mean,
Mhm.
I've had a few experiences in my college where people, you know, want to get their power back. People want to feel like, you know, if they feel like they're not getting treated the right way, they'll step on all of you to, you know, get back to where they were going to be. And it's just that's just sometimes how it goes. It's some people just don't grow out of it. And
Mhm.
it's the feeling of, you know, feeling like somebody took this from you, so you have to take this from them.
Mhm.
And that's not always like that's not the right thing.
Mhm.
It's not the right thing to do.
Mhm. Mhm. So, at the end of our discussion, Andrew had commented that he felt like this was kind of a bleak left a bleak outlook on the future. And I said, I think it leaves a lot of promise because it brings the issues up. It gives opportunity to be talked about. We see them all as they are. And I think it can lead to a lot of talks like we're having and hopefully share with other people. What's your view? Do you feel like the future's pretty bleak or do you feel like there's opportunity or both?
I think there's light in the darkness a little bit. I mean, you know, trust exactly what all is going to happen with like AI and this generation and, you know, social media and how that's affecting people? Do I trust that 100%? Probably not. Because social media is only going to get more and more, you know, programmable and like add on stuff. And I think a lot of people at this time in life as well, like even adults too, depend on social media for happiness, depend on social media
Mhm.
for serotonin. And I think that's the one thing that will be bleak about this future, because there's going to be people that do have social media addictions. It
Mhm.
just, you know, adds on to it. And I think like, is the future going to be 100% bleak? No, we have so many opportunities to have discussions about things that are happening to bring awareness. And I don't think that the future is really going to be entirely bleak. I think there definitely is some light. It's just we all got to follow that light
Mhm.
first.
Mhm. So do you think that kind of idea of education can be inoculation? And really becoming aware of all the patterns and how your brain chemistry works, what's happening with us wanting to connect, the history of those things, and really getting a handle on the choices you're making.
Well, I think we saw that a lot during like COVID. People were needing connection. People were needing, you know, we as humans, we need to be connected to people. We need
Mhm.
to be able to go out and talk to people in person. That's just kind of how we work. That's how we work as like humans. And I think like it's very important to be connected, but it just depends whether you're doing this connection through a screen or in person. And I think that's something that we kind of need to separate a little bit, because if you're only doing it through the screen, it can skew your view of things. It can, you know, because there's only some content that's targeted towards you. That's how, you know, the Instagram works. It's how
Mhm.
TikTok works. This is how most social medias work. Is it gives you the content that you want to see.
Mhm.
So you're only ever seeing content that you want to see and never seeing the full side of things. You're not seeing the full story of things. You're only seeing content that's directed towards you. And so, you know, if you're not being able to connect to people and you're only seeing this type of content, then your com- everything your view is going to be completely skewed.
So what do you do to try to make sure you're getting more of the whole story?
Well, I mean, I just ask people,
Yeah.
hey, I saw this video. What are your thoughts on this? Did
Mhm.
you get something different? Like, do you have a different view on this? Do you have you know, and topics are something that's really important. I mean I know me and my boyfriend have very important like discussions between like maybe like what's this story behind this, what's this story, I mean like there's a whole, you know, Selena Gomez and Hailey Bieber drama that was happening, and I talked to my boyfriend about it. I was like, "Hey, what do you think?" And you know, I was so focused on protecting this one person that I didn't
Mhm.
even look at like the whole picture, what was
Mhm.
going on, what was, because I was only getting fed one side of the story. I was only
Right.
getting fed this. And I think that's the thing is as well is that a lot of people too get really involved personally with
Mhm.
stories that with celebrities and stories with people online. And I think like it's like this form of like connection they feel to these people they don't even know. And
Mhm.
so you feel like a personal attack when other people get attacked that you don't even know.
Mhm.
So it's all about asking people, asking around, looking it up, doing research, trying to, put effort into getting both sides of the story
Mhm.
instead of just consuming only the one side and the
Mhm.
side that you want to hear.
So I remember when you were little, you talked to me about stories that you'd heard, and I always say, "What are your sources? What are your sources?" Do you think that that helped you? Yeah,
Yeah.
because we always talked about making sure that what was brought to us just wasn't what something that might have shown up, because Grace loves to do her research, but her research would pretty much be in the silo and just confirming. But when I'd say, "What are your sources?" she would come back and educate me often, which I felt really proud of. And sometimes like, "What?" And she goes, "Dad, here are my sources," you know? So sometimes your kids are learning things with that feedback and you don't realize it, and you continue to question them when you want to ask questions like, "Tell me what you learned about. Tell me about these different views. Is there something I should take a look at?" So even as a parent, be willing to check your sources too, and don't think that only you know better. Because as I've always said, your kids can be your greatest teachers. And even through this and through a lot of the things with parenting, I can say that there's so many situations that I feel like I missed out on in spending time with you, and those are things I still feel regret about. And I see who you're becoming, and I feel very proud of that. And I still know as a parent that I wish I had spent more key times with you and done more things, even the way the rest of our life together.
Yeah, but I mean, like what I said earlier, let your kids miss you. Let your kids come to you because if you push yourself into their personal space, into their life, they'll push you away back. And
Mhm.
that's something that I think I had to learn as well, being like a teenager and stuff like that. Now I miss coming home. I'm in college and I miss my parents. I call them. I want to be on the phone with them. I want to talk to them. And I really miss them. And eventually, most kids that are going off to college will feel that too.
Mhm.
They'll want to come home. They'll want to, come and visit and stuff like that because they'll miss the times that they missed out on too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you having this discussion with me, and I appreciate you educating our audience here. So how I end every show is I point my finger at the screen and I go, "Until next time." Okay,
Okay.
so we'll go 1, 2, 3. Until next time.
Host Dr. E.